You're muted. Alan, you are muted. That's why I can't hear you.
Hey guys,
Hello.
Which daf did he leave off yesterday?
We finished 74.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'm up to 75, yeah.
Hello, everybody.
hey Rabbi
Hello.
Doctor.
The reason this year is early because of the PUA event. I didn't want to conflict with that. And we're planning to go because one of my daughters is involved. Okay, so we're on Ayin Hay, Ahmed Aleph. I'm going to try to do 2 blot today. Okay, so we said we left off Tricha. That's why Trey Kroy Bekotchim Lamali. So we said Trichi. We're on Ayin Hay, Ahmed Aleph, I don't know, maybe 10 lines down. Because Rachmana B'Yoledes Mishum de Meruba Tumasa. She has many days of 40 and 80 days. Aval B'Zav, it's only 7, Emelo. Because Rachmana B'Zav, Deloy Hutter Michlolo. There's no heter when the 7 days of a zav is prohibited completely. Now, Yoledes, of the 40 days or the 80 days, remember, 7 days she's tameh, 33 days she's tahor, right? So there's a heter michlolo, maybe, so tzrich, I need a psukim by both places. That, remember, we have found the source for why, when you go to the mikveh, you can already, you're at Tvul Yom and you can eat meiser. Herav Shemesh, you can eat truma, and the next day when you bring your korbanos, you can eat kodshim, and it goes in that order. Then it says, B'mayim yuvav v'tameh arev. It says, you go to the mikveh, you're still tameh until nightfall. Well, what do we need this? We already learned, we already had enough psukim to teach me that. Lamali. That's for touching. It's not that you can't eat the truma. You can't. You metame it through touching as well. That we wouldn't have known. The Tanya, betame. Yachol lakol, meaning negia and achila tamadon v'taher. No, in some aspects you're tor. V'it v'taher that you're tor yachol lakol tamadon v'tamei. So you can't be both tor v'tamei. Haketzad. In the morning when you go to the mikveh and you're at Tvul Yom kan lemaiser, right? And kan letruma. And that's by negia. That after you went to the mikveh and you touch meiser doesn't metame it. And after Erev Shemesh, if you touch Truma, you're not Metame it. Maybe it's vice versa. Truma after Tvul Yom and Meiser at night. So it's mistabra, it's logical. Eating Truma is more machmir than eating Meiser, meaning anyone can eat Meiser, Sheni. Even when you give Meiser Rishon to a Levi, you can eat it. There's no Zarus. By Truma, we know there's Zarus. There's Yerchayv Misa B'dei Shemayim if a Zar eats Truma.
You mean the Levi can give Meiser, once he gets Meiser Rishon, he can distribute it and do whatever he wants with it?
He invites you to your house to have a Shabbos meal, you can eat from it. There's no Zarus by Meiser. And of course, Kenny, the Meiser Sheni, you as the farmer that separate Meiser Sheni, you eat it.
Right, you
got to eat it in Yerushalayim. There's no Zarus.
Yeah.
A Yisrael can eat Meiser of any kind, whether it's Meiser Rishon, whether it's Meiser Sheni. So kihechi the chamir achila the truma achila the Meiser achanami chamir negia the truma negia the Meiser. So it makes common sense that the din of negia would also follow the same sort of hierarchy. That touching truma and being metameyed is learned from a different pasuk. B'chol kodesh lo yisiga. Don't touch kodesh. So that's azar la'oichel. That's somebody that if you're in a state of tumah, if your physical body is tumah, you may not eat it. Oyena lo nageya. Maybe it says that if you touch it, it converts. It makes it tummy. Talmud loymar b'chol kodesh lo siga. Velamikdash lo savo. It connects bias migdash to touching. Mekish kodesh lemigdash. Ma migdash davar sheyesh bo netilas neshama. Meaning, there's kores. If you go into the base of migdash in a state of tumah. So therefore, we must be talking about achila b'tumah, which is also by kores. There's no kores by touching truma. You can't touch it, and you can make it tameh, but there's no kores. Right? Mekish kodesh lemigdash. Ma migdash davar sheyesh bo netilas neshama, which refers to achila. Av kodesh davar sheyesh bo netilas neshama. Uvenegia netilas neshama leka. There is no misa by touching either hegdish or truma. Mahai dafke b'loshen negia, achi kamar negia ke'achila, meaning until Erev Shemesh you can't touch it. But the main source is achila. Okay. Now we enter a new sugi, p'tuadaka. We learn in the Mishnah that if a testicle was cut or crushed, so he's also cannot. He cannot. If as long as he has had lo yavop p'tuadaka b'kal Hashem. As long as he hasn't. Let's say he got married to his wife, and he was normal at that time. And then he had an operation where he had both testicles removed, or he had a vasectomy. He's not allowed to live with his wife. Now, as long as he doesn't live with her, she can continue eating truma. Now, even though she's mishtameres lebia psula, she's hanging around, she's a wife, where if you had bia with her, it would be puzzle. Man tana mishtameres lebia psula doraisa achla. Who is the tana that says that even though they are married, and if he had bia with her, it would be puzzle. It's a machlok. It's Rav Elazar Rab Shimon. It's the sheet of Rav Elazar Rab Shimon, who said that an almana who has kiddushin with a kohen gadol, as long as he hadn't had relations with her yet, she continues to eat truma. It's the same here. Over there, it's a bia mishtameres. She's mishtameres to be a psula. So that Tana holds that she can still eat truma. Rabbi Yochanan afilu temer Rab Meir. You don't have to come on to the sheet of Rav Elazar Rab Shimon. Even the Rab Meir there, who poisels by an almana, right? A kohen gadol who gives a kiddushin to an almana, according to Rab Meir, she can't eat truma. So why is tzedakah different according to the Gemara? You know why? The almana had never. The almana was an almana who had never eaten. An almana from Yisrael, never eaten truma before. This kohen gadol gave her kiddushin. So according to Rav Meir, she's not allowed to eat it because she never ate before. But we're talking about a case where this kohen had married his wife Beheter, then afterwards became a tzedakah. And all those years up until she became a tzedakah, she had eaten this svar of shekvar achla, and he didn't do an aser dika maisa by living with her to passel her, so she remains the chazaka to eat truma. Now, Rabbi Elazar, who doesn't hold of that, shekvar achla lo yamrinan, he doesn't hold of the svara of shekvar achla. And he gives a good reason why he doesn't hold of it. Bas Yisrael shenisis lekoyin umeis baila. You have a Bas Yisrael who marries a koyin. While they're married, the koyin feeds her truma. Then he dies. Now we learned that if she has a son from that koyin, right, the Bas Yisrael continues to eat truma because of the son. But let's say he dies and there's no children. So the din is she doesn't eat anymore. But based on the story we just learned, toichal, shekvar achla. If you're saying that a wife who had previously eaten should eat based on that svara, well, a Bas Yisrael that was married to a kohen was eating truma, then he dies, so she should be able to continue eating based on the svara of kvar achla. Well, when the guy dies, there's no kinyan anymore. The kinyan kiddushin that was between that husband and wife has gone away. But here, we're talking about the kohen who's married to this woman.
And she can't eat based on the Zika?
No, not Zika. We're not talking about Zika here.
Why? She dies without kids. So there's a Zika for Yibum. Didn't we learn that with the Zika?
There's no brothers. We're talking about a Bas Yisrael's married to Chaim Yankel, a kohen. He has no brothers. When you're married, you eat truma. If he dies and he didn't leave any children, she doesn't continue eating truma. The Bas Yisrael doesn't eat truma unless she's married to the kohen. The kohen dies, it stops. There's no zika to anybody.
Okay.
She's an almana. We're not talking about here about any yibum. Now, but we wanted to say, Kenny, if there's a svara of shekvar achla, she should continue eating because we had a svara of kvar achla. So explains Rav Yochanan, no, it's different in these two cases. By a kohen who married a Bas Yisrael and then he died, Paka kinyana, there's no kinyan anymore. However, we said a kohen married a Bas Yisrael and he was kosher. And then later on he became a tzedakah. And he didn't live with her yet. Hacha at lo Paka kinyana, the kinyan's still there. He's not dead. There's still a kinyan kiddushin. Doesn't go away, and the svara of shekvar achla continues to allow her to eat. Okay, ezeu psuadaka. Ton rabbanon, ezeu psuadaka. Kol shenifzu beitzim shelo. If his testicles were wounded, vafilu achas mehen, even one of them. Vafilu nikvu, they had a hole made in them. Vafili nimoko, they became atrophic, they shrunk. Vafili chosru, there's something missing. By the way, those who are in my shiur understand, if you do it according to Marshall, even if you take a biopsy of the testicle, if it's l'shem refuah, korsim l'shem refuah, as long as the doctor can do it in a way that the person is still moilid, this is very relevant. Now, the Tanakama seems to hold that even one testicle removed makes you a psuadaka. If you have one testicle, you're like somebody who became castrated through birth. That's called a sris chama, bidei shamayim. And therefore you're kosher. Tzuadaka, to have a testicle removed, it's got to be bidei adam. Someone has to cut it off. If you were born with an absent testicle, that's bidei shamayim, and you're not a tzuadaka. You're kosher levolakol. So we see here machlokas tanoim by beitza achas. Rav Yochanan, Rabbi Shmuel holds that you're kosher. Tanakama says you're not kosher. Frag the Gemara, Sris Chama Sakadaitach. What do you mean? How can you call him a Sris Chama? Sris Chama is bidei shamayim achbas choilis, says Rashi. V'halav choilihu. Here it's not talking about a case of choili. Elaharehu kis Sris Chama v'kosher. Just like he meant, just like a Sris Chama is kosher, here also is kosher. Okay. By the way, this is the Toisvis she'eno lebeitza achas eno kasves v'kama that I went through at length. Look at the end of that Toisvis. It's ulevad shleimin. Rav Yudin bar Chana ulevad shleimin shel yemin. Yesh lefarish trei gavni kloimer davka shenit la'achas v'achas shleima kosher. We talked about the difference between removing a testicle whole as opposed to in parts versus shel yemin that Rabbeinu Tam held that if the left testicle was removed, you were not a psuadaka. If the right was removed, you were. He made it, and we discussed it has to do with the varicose seal. Okay. Someone who has a hole in the testicle is not moili. Person was climbing off a palm tree, and one of the thorns of the palm tree hit him in the beitza. And and like shichvazer came out of there. Voilid. And so l'chora, how can you tell me that if a testicle was wounded, he's ain't a molid? Here, this guy was moilid. So the Gemara answers, Hashalach Shmuel Kamed Rav Amar Leit Sefer Chazra Bon of my name. They didn't believe that he was moilid. Go check. I bet you his kids are mamzerim, and they're not his children. His wife was mizana. Okay. Amar Shmuel P'tzuadak B'dei Shemaim kosher. So Rashi, Al Yedei Re'enim Uborod means thunder and lightning. Now we took a lot of work to try to understand what that means. I don't think it means that he was struck by lightning. He's like afraid. He got a fright. Again, I don't know of any disease that causes the testicle to be damaged by that. Or he says Mimei Imo. He was born that way. So if you're born, let's say, with an absent testicle, you're not a tzuadaka, it's bidei shamayim. Remember, we discussed a major machlokas between the Rambam and the Rosh. The Rambam held that if you had an abscess in your testicle or cancer in your testicle, that is not something you cause, it's bidei shamayim. And the surgeon removes it. The Rambam holds that's considered bidei shamayim. Even though you removed it, it's bidei adam. The disease that caused you to remove it is bidei shamayim. The Rosh said, no. If the surgeon removed it, you're a psuadaka. It's considered bidei adam. Even though the disease, so that's a major machlokas between Rambam and the Rosh. Those that are lenient have the Rambam to rely on, as long as the person can be moilid. But that's what makes these questions very difficult. So, Amar Rav Hainu the Korean Patsua v'lo Korean HaPatsua. The digduk of Patsua is what says that if it happened, you were born that way, you're found to be a Patsua, that does not make you not kosher. We must need to tell the Nemer lo yavo Patsua, the Nemer lo yavo Mamzer. There is a pasuk right before lo yavo Ptsudaka that says lo yavo Mamzer. Now, Mamzeris occurs through being mezana with an Eshasish. Now, malahalam bidei adam, so that's human action caused mamzeres. Avkan bidei adam. That's the reason why suadak has to be bidei adam. Amar Rava patsua bekulan, dach bekulan, chorus bekulan. We're talking about Patzur b'kulam bein shenifza agid, whether the penis was wounded, bein shenifzu beitzim, the testicles were wounded, bein shenifzu chute beitzim. The chute beitzim is the vas deferens, the tube that transports the shechva zera from the testicle to eventually be ejaculated. Dach b'kulan means bein shenidach agid, whether the penis was crushed, bein shenidchu beitzim, whether the testicles were crushed, bein shenidchu chute beitzim. Karus b'kulan bein shenichras agid, whether it was cut, bein shenichutzu bein, bein shenichutzu chute beitzim. First of all, who told you that this psuadaka refers to something crushed in the genitalia? Ema barosho. Maybe he's got a crushed skull. Because it doesn't say dor shlishi, dor sheni, like it did by Mitzri. It says right away you're a psuadaka. Why? He couldn't generate generations, ad doirasiri, because since he was wounded in his genitalia, he can't have children. Fine. Maybe the reason why it didn't count generations, because the index case is prohibited, but brei ubar brei kosher. But the son and the grandsons are kosher. So dumya de krushuvcha. Ma krushuvcha boisamakom. Having urethra wounded is clearly in the urethra. So krushuvcha gufeimi ma'ide boisamakom. How do you know that krushuvcha means it was cut in the urethra? Maybe it's your lips that were cut. Shchavcha kshiv b'makom sheshoifech. It pours, like I guess the urine and the shechva zera pours, and by your saliva it doesn't pour; it sort of gathers and drips. But maybe it's from your nose, and the nose pours. So miksiv bishfoch. It doesn't say sometimes it is shoifech and sometimes it's not. It only is shoifech by cutting it, but shalaya de krisa ain't a shoifech. But normally the urethra, if it's not cut, you won't have shvicha. Elamekalech, by the nose, it sort of gathers before it comes out. In any case, the nose will be like a shoifech, even if it's not cut. Here is the final proof. Where's mamzeris the source from? The genitalia. By having relations with an eshes ish, through your genitalia, you create mamzeris. So malahalam b'oisam makom, just like by mamzeris you need oisam makom, afkan b'oisam makom. Okay, nikiv lamata matorah. So at the glans penis, and you have a hole that goes all the way to the urethra. Rav Chia wanted to say that the person is not a psuadaka. Armele Ravasi, Hachiyam Rav Shua ben Levi, Atara Kolshi Makebes. The only place where there's a heter, if you have a hole going to the urethra, is on the glands or the corona. Because there, the urethra, the ejaculation, what's the problem? If you have a hole in the penile shaft itself, the ejaculation is never going to be deposited in the right place. But if the hole is on the glands, it might be deposited in the right place, even so. But the Mishnah said in Nishtayir Ma'atorah, if there was a little bit of the glands remaining, it's kosher. That which we said, you need a little bit of the corona, apne kula, apne ruba. Do you need a majority of the circumference or just the majority going anterior, posterior? That means from below to the tip. It's got to be circumference, uklape resha, towards the body. If the glands were shaped like a fountain pen, it's kosher. But kamarzev, where it's like a gutter, where it's a real part of the urethra is shown, then it's psula. Why? High shal be'avir, high low shal be'avir. When it's more formed like a pen, if there's a lot of air, he will not be able to ejaculate properly. Kakulmus, he'll be able to ejaculate properly. Rav Chizar Amar Kemar Zev Ksheira Kakulmus Psula. He's learned the opposite. If it's like a gutter, it's kosher, Kakulmus Psula. Because high gorid v'high low gorid. It has enough thickness that in having relations with the wall of the vaginal canal, it will heat it up, says the Rishonim U'Mischamim Amazriya. But Kekulmus, it's not thick enough, and therefore it doesn't there's not enough stimulation. Amar Rav Kavos Ravuna Mistavra. Ravuna makes sense. Because high lo shal be'avir, high shal be'avir, because he said the way Ravuna learned, it doesn't have enough air to it. Imishum greater, and if it has to do with the thickness, mididava barza de chavisa. It's like the barrel of a wine barrel that when you put a faucet in there and it's sharp and you stick it into the bottom of the barrel until you reach the fluid. They make the same comparison to when the penis is shaped that way. No matter how the glands are shaped, it's always kosher. Miyu. Maboile, lemata matara olamala. Is it towards the glands and the meatus, or towards the body? Lamala means it's towards the body, like towards the penile shaft. Pshita de lamala matara. It's referring to the penile shaft. The isagadak lamata matara filinichos agid nami. I mean, even if it was cut, we said it reaches to the urethra, and it wouldn't be a problem. You'd be able to deposit the ejaculation in the right place. In fact, Ravina, the Gemara says, Ravina only said it to confuse Meremer, in order to make sure that he understood the sugya. There was a case in Masa Machsia. Shafi Marba Ravashi Kulmus, and I guess Ravashi did a surgical procedure, made him like a kulmus, and he said he was kosher. Here comes a famous case. We talked about this as well in the Shir. Hahu uvda da'avu pumadisa istatim gusa d'shich vazer v'alkum k'tanim. That Rashi says there was two tubes. Nekev shiroi lo etzi bozer nistam. There was a tube that ejaculated and a tube that brought the urine, and the chora came out all the way to the tip of the penis. But in this case, one of the tubes closed off, and the zera came out through the same opening. Because it says in Bechayris, I'm reading Rashi, Shnei nekavim yesh b'adam. Person has two holes. Echad moitzi shetet ve'echad moitzi shichva zera. One is for urine, one is for zera. Uveneim keklipas hashum. So that's, we explained in the Shir at the shul. Chazon Ish says, well, we see today we only have one tube, and our zera and our urine comes out through the same tube. So he said nishtanu ativim. The Cheshav Ha'efot says absolutely not. It has to do with where back, like I showed the picture, back in the prostate, the ejaculatory duct joins the urethra back in the prostate. So we have one tube for zera, one tube for sheten. And the proof for that is we already learned in Gemara that if a person is a bal keri, before he goes to the mikveh, he has to urinate. Why? Because we're concerned that there's a few drops of zera at the tip of his meatus. Well, if they had two different tubes, that Gemara didn't make any sense. So he urinates, so he gets rid of the zera. So it's clear from Chazal as well that their urine and the shechva zera came out from the same tube.
Okay, new blood, right?
New blood.